one person can do, what one volunteer can do, what one can do, despite the fact people say, I'm too busy to vote, I'm too busy to do this. He's doing it all. Give him another round of applause. Okay, I gave you a little background on what is happening over at HUD, but here we have Chancela al-Mansour has been the executive director of the Housing Rights Center since 2010, where she manages the nation's largest and oldest private fair housing advocacy organization. The Housing Rights Center provides free counseling and legal services to more than 20,000 households in Los Angeles and Ventura counties every year. And so, before joining the Housing Rights Center, al-Mansour worked at Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles for 16 years, where she supervised the Homeless Prevention Project with LA City and LA County and litigated hundreds of cases involving landlord-tenant, subsidized housing programs, mortgage fraud, and discrimination in housing. It's on you now, Chancellor. Please share with us. What is it you do?
So the Housing Rights Center, my organization, has been in existence since 1968. And like Mr. Baumann said, we don't want to return to pre-1968 because that's when the Fair Housing Act was passed. It was passed when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and one of his biggest issues was to stop illegal housing discrimination in all housing, including in private housing. So it prevented housing discrimination on the basis of race, religion, and then other groups were added later, including families with children, persons with disabilities, seniors, people who are being discriminated against based on their sexual orientation, and military status, and also more recently being having a Section 8 voucher or receiving government assistance. So a landlord can't discriminate against somebody who has a Section 8 voucher. So you need fair housing organizations to actually enforce that law, because as great as HUD is, it was never a big enough organization or department or fully funded to do all the fair housing enforcement in the country. HUD only did about 20% of the fair housing enforcement. So you need organizations like the Housing Rights Center, where we serve residents in the city of Torrance and the county of Los Angeles. You contact us if you need a reasonable accommodation because you were denied a caregiver, or you denied a parking space that's close to your unit, or something like that. So we represent a woman whose landlord wanted to evict her because she disclosed to him that she was dying from stage 4 breast cancer, and he didn't want somebody dying in his apartments. I think like those are kind of the real things that are happening, and where people are being forced into homelessness because also rents are being raised more than they can afford to pay, and all kinds of other things as well. So you need organizations like the Housing Rights Center to do those type of things. In 2005, one thing we did, for example, was sue Donald Sterling, one of the largest landlords in Los Angeles County, because he was evicting all of his Black and Latino and white tenants in preference of Asian tenants in the areas of Koreatown, and so forth. And so we represent over 17 families, won a big case against him. But the Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Department, came in after us in 2007 and also filed a big case against Donald Sterling. Donald Sterling owned the LA Clippers at the time, so besides having over 10,000 rental units. And so for also violating the civil rights of Los Angelenos, and got a multi-million-dollar award against Donald Sterling, and insisted that he not discriminate in his buildings and so forth. The reason why I'm raising this Department of Justice Civil Rights Department is because just this last week, it was basically dismantled by this administration. And so we cannot rely on the U.S. Department of Justice to file housing discrimination cases, to represent, a few years ago they represented a group of women who were facing extreme sexual harassment in Los Angeles. Those kind of cases probably won't be filed anymore because that Civil Rights Department has been dismantled as much as HUD has. I'm also a member of the National Fair Housing Alliance. We witnessed Congresswoman Maxine Waters go to the steps of the Capitol and various buildings, and be such a vocal, strong voice for fair housing, and for all of housing as well. Because yes, HUD was cut tremendously. Most of the fair housing organizations have lost some part of their funding. My organization lost all of its federal funding in the last year. Even though we represent and have always done good work, have never been told that the work we're doing is not something we should be doing or anything like that. But basically, nonprofit organizations and other organizations that do this kind of work have lost funding. I want to point out something else that had recently happened in the last few weeks at HUD. So, well, HUD has cut a lot of the funding to the nonprofit fair housing organizations. HUD is still saying, okay, we're going to take fair housing complaints, so people can contact us and file a complaint if they're being discriminated against by their landlord, for example, or a mortgage company or realtor they're trying to buy a home. Well, HUD recently announced that they are shutting down their email system, their phone system, and all other systems. You can only file a HUD complaint now by going on the internet and accessing a certain link to a certain portal. So how many people have that kind of internet access or capability or technology or so forth to even find this link on this portal to file a complaint with the federal government now saying you've been discriminated against in housing? Most people can't. And so I want to just highlight that this is also part of the plan of what's going on, and that's defunding the agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, like HUD, that are the infrastructure and the backbone for the type of fair housing work and anti-discrimination work that needs to happen. So when you lay off all the staff, which is happening with a lot of HUD also, where thousands of HUD staff have been laid off, then you don't have anybody to actually do the report, go out and do the site visits, staff the offices to take the complaints and all of that. So even though they can say maybe HUD is funded, if you don't have the staff there and they can't do the work, you basically kill it from the inside out, which is happening with a lot of these different organizations and the work that's being done. So you have to really pay attention at the attacks that's happening on a lot of different levels. We're being attacked in the sense of the government agencies that are the reporting agencies and the regulators that do the work. You're being attacked in terms of the nonprofit agencies and the federal contractors that are in the communities and in the neighborhoods. And then we're being attacked in terms of the actual work itself, and so forth. And then also in terms of the law firms that may take pro bono cases and represent people and tenants like yourselves free of charge. A lot of those law firms are being attacked and being told that they can't do that kind of work. So I just want to say a couple things that is happening. So organizations like the National Fair Housing Alliance has at least 3 lawsuits filed against this administration, and they've been winning. Lawsuits are being filed, we are winning. It's a lot of work, and we thank you all for your support and for coming out today. Thank you.